Which would be worse for you, to invest a lot of money or invest a lot of time in coaching? Or if it's not coaching, learning, going to a seminar, reading a book, taking a course, right? What's worse for you, investing a lot of time or money and then feeling like, it didn't really work. I didn't really get out of it what I wanted to. Wasted my... Okay, hold on to that. Many years ago, when I was traveling around Spain and Portugal, working on a psychic fair in Spanish, una feria de ciencias ocultas, I learned a massively important lesson. Now, here's the thing you may not know. When anybody puts themselves in the role, well, let's be general. When anybody puts themselves in the role of a professional, a helper, a coach, a teacher, a mentor, or specifically one that could be perceived as a psychic, the person who's in the client role, coachee role, tends to, doesn't always, right? When you can see this coming now, tends to give some power over there. So I was new to the psychic fair. I didn't know what this was like. And what we're doing in the psychic fair was doing these 5-minute mini readings, right? And I had worked already for years as an astrologer, though that was when people were paying me quite a lot of money. Back in those days, it was a lot of money. I don't know, a couple $100. And I was with them for a long time. So they were invested, right? And I took a while to help them understand how it worked. But now, in the Feria de Ciencias Ocultas, I had 5 minutes. They got one question. It was the equivalent of $5. Get to it, man. Which is part of why I took the gig. That's a whole nother funny, hilarious, weird story for another time. But I knew it would stretch me. I would grow if I could only have 5 minutes. What I found, though, is a lot of people would show up because, especially at $5, it's a little bit like cheap entertainment, right? Paid my $5. I'm going to get on the carnival ride. Let's see what they got for me, right? And so the client would get one question, right? And they would ask questions like, is so-and-so going to go out with me? Am I going to pass? This was in Spain. We had a bunch of youngish people who were learning. Am I going to pass my driving test? Will I ever get married? Right? They would ask these fate-like questions. And at first I was like, something's rubbing me the wrong way about this. Something's off. I didn't know what it was. So I spoke to my friend Ketan. He had been on the psychic fair for longer. We were in Bilbao, Spain, and we would go to the vegetarian restaurant every day at lunch. And finally I said to him, I was like, what? I don't know. I'm struggling with this because it's like they're testing me. He's like, oh yeah, they did that with me too. Here's what I do, right? When they give me a testing question, let's see what this psychic has for me, right? I say to them, this is what Ketan said to me. I say to them, look, if I'm going to be honest, if you want me to be honest with you, best you're honest with me, right? So we use that as a way to help people get out of, oh, let's see what they got for me. And why I tell you this story right now is because now in the coaching business where people pay big money, right? I've paid a ton of money to my coaches. I think now I'm up to like $750,000 over the last 30 years, right? People make 5- and 6-figure investments to work with me. The biggest problem I see is they show up thinking the coach is going to give them something, do something for them, to them. And I get it because I did plenty of that, right? I remember when I was a young man studying writing, still a young man, thank you very much. When I was a young man studying writing, I really had this like fantasy that either somebody like a benefactor, a patron was going to discover me and just take care of all my expenses. Or for a while, it didn't last long, but for a while that I was going to meet a rich woman and we would fall madly in love with you. But what that does, right? The fantasy that someone's going to give it removes our agency, removes our power. Right? So Give you the flip side example. I am in the midst of a challenge right now with one of my coaches, sort of one of my coaches, Myron Golden, somebody I've been following. And so I'm doing a challenge with him. And of course, like many of us would do when we offer something, we say, hey, what would you like to get out of this? Whenever I get that question, and that's how a lot of people put it to me now, I don't say, well, I'd like to get, no, man. I say, this is what I will create. Right? And what I will create is X, Y, and Z. This great breakthrough, this result, this shift to who I am being. Right? Incredible, cool breakthrough I had with one of my clients today. Right? Somebody who invested 5 figures to work with me in a group program. Right? I asked him the question, challenging question. Here's a result that happened. And he said, it happened to me. This is what happened. And I said, okay, how did you create that? His answer, I don't know. Stay with me though. A few months ago, I would ask him that question. I don't know. You tell me. Like, come on, I paid you. You're the expert. Today though, he said, I don't know. I waited. Then he said, well, maybe I did this. I didn't do this. Right? Boom, celebration. Why? Because now he's actively involved. Like, I'm happy to share my perspective. I'm never going to hold that back. However, way more important is your perspective, what you learn, and that process of going, how did I do that? How did I create that? Who am I being? Like that inquiry, that's where the juice is. That's how you go from investing $100,000 and getting $1 million of value out of it, right? Just in our call today, he would say it was on $1 million or $10 million value for him because he realized what he can do moving out of being an employee, moving into being an entrepreneur, what he can create for this niche market is worth to them millions upon millions of dollars. They will pay him a lot of money for that. He saw that, right? A miracle shift in perception when we see something in a new way. New possibilities, going from Plato's cave, seeing shadows in the wall, stepping out into the light, realizing, oh, that was all just my own shadow. There's a whole world out there. So bringing it back, what's the mistake? What are you going to do for me? How are you going to fix me? What's the answer? Right? And I don't say that disparagingly because I did plenty of that. I'm sure I still do it sometimes. It's shifting from that to saying, how did I create this? Right? The question I ask clients all the time, what would you love to create today? Okay, cool. Here's something that didn't work out. Okay, how did you create that? It's not the whole truth. There's all factors out there. But when we get that agency, that power, that autonomy, superpower. So for clients, students, trainees, course, book, coaching session, coaching program, if you show up with, I will create from this relationship, so much more power. You get so much more value out of it. What a cool world we live in, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. See you later. May you create